Hi everyone, Dorian here, and for today's video we are building a tiny house. Now that may not be what you're seeing on the screen, but as intentional, so bear with me for a minute. I took inspiration from James Turner's YouTube channel on his Dream Home Decorator Let's Play series. He took one of the larger lots in Del Sol Valley and he added some debug homes and like debug fences just to kind of fill in the space a bit. As a way to make the actual lot smaller so that when he put his house at the end it didn't seem so out of place, but also he did it without building actual houses, which would end up increasing the bills for the property. I thought it was a really cool idea and I thought it had quite a bit of potential, especially when it came to like starter homes and in this particular instance a tiny home. So what I ended up doing was I took a debug house foundation fence and I put the hazard tape fencing from Get Famous around it just to make it completely inaccessible. You'll see I did add some gates, so I did end up having to make a few tweaks there because it looked like when I made the fence that when I added the gates that the fence line was retained, but it was not. But yeah, made a few tweaks there. But at this point in the video, I put together the garage. It's basically a box. The idea was it was originally a garage. Um, Initially, I was trying to match the decor of the actual house as best I could, but I couldn't find as vibrant a white for the siding within what was within the available options as they used. And so I ended up settling a bit, and as you'll see when we do the reveal, I ended up making a few changes to that, made it a little more modern. But for right now, you'll see a lot of traditional siding, traditional white windows. But the actual when we do the reveal towards the end of this video, you'll see there are some differences. But um, the main thing here was to add a driveway, which ends up being the walkway up to the house because obviously this was a garage, so it would have had a driveway. And then figuring out the dooring, since the front of the house would have been where the garage doors would have been, I figured they would have been replaced with French doors. I have one right here. I do eventually add two. I do end up making some changes towards the end just to make one of them inaccessible, so it ends up more of a window. Just because I didn't want the sim constantly walking in and out in order to get from everywhere. But for right now, we have our French doors. Trying to go through which windows I want to use, which I wanted to use black originally. You can see the darker colors, but not all of the darker colors end up having the same color swatch, which is a little annoying because what looks like black in the swatch ends up being like a darker brown or like a different shade of black. So for right now, we're sticking with white, but in the end, I do end up using some stuff from Snowy Escape, even though I was trying to limit the amount of packs I use because I was already using Get Famous. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. So as we'll see, once I settled on adding double doors, I added the roof, and I did the basic one bedroom, one bath. Since I was using limited packs, I know I could have made the bathroom a little bit smaller if I used the university shower because I could have potentially made a 3 tile full bath, but I think it worked out okay. As you see right now, I'm putting together a small kitchen. I did also, in addition to making this a tiny home, I did want to make this available as a starter home, so I kept the price of everything under 20,000. I did take a few liberties here and there. I used a little bit more expensive stove just because I wanted black. And as you can also see in the video, I did originally consider making this like a 2-story garage, but nixed that idea pretty much right away because it looked kind of awkward. But everything else in the house is fairly inexpensive furnishings, and it's a little sparse, a little more sparse than I would traditionally like. But again, it's a starter home. You're not going to have much. And once you download this from a gallery, you can fill it out however you would like. But overall, at this point, we have our basic floor plan down, and you end up making a few tweaks, shifting some stuff around using move objects, just so the sim isn't having to constantly go in and out in order to get to the different sections. But yeah, we have a love seat, we have a table, we have 2 chairs. Put some windows in, get a little more lighting. So at this point, we're still using kind of traditional white windows. I do end up changing that later, but just because I didn't want I didn't want to basically create like the tiny house version of Crypt Cabana, which has the very traditional. I think it actually uses octopane and like that traditional siding. I wanted to make something hopefully a little sleeker looking. But yeah, So I think at this point, yep, at this point I'm just doing some decoration in the house. As you'll see later in the video, I do quite a bit of landscaping. I do give them a closed-in garden, a closed-in yard, I should say, with a few little garden plots, and I use a lot of debug landscaping to both fill out this section of the yard as well as the section of the yard inside the manor's yard. Basically, I wanted the house to make it look like it was more lived in, so added a few trees, added some debug patio furniture, and I think it turned out nicely. So I'm gonna stop here and enjoy the rest of the speed build, and we'll pick up with the reveal at the end.
So as I mentioned before, I did make a few changes. So what you see now looks a little different from where we ended the speed build. Um, I did decide to go a little more modern. So especially since we couldn't match up with the really bright white siding of the house, I went with more of like a stucco-y, plastery type look. So I used the unbent smoothness wallpaper to kind of give it that vibe. I also did end up, as I mentioned, replacing most of the windows. I left this smaller bathroom window here with the darker windows from Snowy Escape, just to give it more modern vibes. Inside, I didn't make too many changes from where we left off. I did add a little more decor, added some carpeting. I also did end up moving this table and chairs and a love seat closer to this door, which ends up making the door inaccessible. As I mentioned during the speed build, the sim would constantly be walking in and out to try to get to the other side of the room, and I wanted to try to let them stay inside. So I kept the door there because it still gives off a nice bit of light, so it ends up basically functioning as a window. This door is still accessible. I also made a few tweaks to the kitchen. I removed that big oven vent I had and I put in a smoke detector because as I was playtesting this, one of the first things my sim did was start a fire. So after I replaced the furniture, I put in a smoke detector. I also added a coffee maker, a couple little shelves with some Debug coffee bags, just create like a little coffee bar. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So this is our deceptively tiny house, and uh, built on a fairly large lot that is, mostly inaccessible thanks to some debug items and from the hazard tape fencing. But I thought this made for a really cute starter home, especially in a larger, seemingly more developed neighborhood. Although Newcrest itself, is still pretty sparse at this point. But that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This lot is available in the gallery. My user ID is DorianKoholi. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any other suggestions for builds, whether it's a more traditional build or a build kind of using these debug items, please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.